Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Martens,
And I'm Bruce Lazarus.
and we created this film called Moving Parts, which is our entry in the film festival. And Bruce, why don't you describe the story of what happens in Moving Parts?
We called it an optical ballet. And that connected a lot with me for my extensive experience working with dancers over the years, working with choreographers. About a year
Hmm.
and a half ago, these sketches that he had for an abstract animation. And it consisted of dots in
Hmm.
various patterns, matrices,
Hmm.
symmetrical, abstracts. And it was exciting because they were going to move.
Ever since I was a teen, when I saw a short by Oscar Fissinger on a PBS station, I had always been intrigued by the animation of the abstract shapes. But I really didn't think of actually doing one until I reunited with Bruce. Bruce and I were friends in middle school, and then we went our separate ways, and then we reunited several years ago, courtesy of good old Facebook. And yep, it's good for a few things like that. Um, and we met and we had the idea, we hatched the idea, yes, let's make an animation film together. I would do the animation and Bruce would do the music. And it became a true collaboration, and Moving Parts is the result. As I conceived it would be a series of configurations, beginning with 7 circles or dots, okay? And they would go through a variety of attempted constellations and arrangements until they finally came up with what you called the perfect setup, which of course occurs at the conclusion of the piece. But throughout the entire process of animating the film, I always had the idea that most of the time there would never be any more than 7 circles seen. Um, and Bruce, you yourself, when you composed the music, also had in mind a 7-note row. Am I correct?
Yeah, it was something like that. I didn't adhere to the row very strictly.
Right, neither did I with the 7 circles, but we kept to the idea of 7 being a number which we would uh, focus in and out of.
Sure. I used the 7 notes sometimes in order as a
Mhm.
theme. Sometimes I took isolated notes and put it in different keys and so on and used them as motives, which I could develop. And here and there, I also used the row as sort of a random note generator whenever
Mhm.
I wanted that 1960s computer.
My equipment was very basic. All of my graphics were created with Photoshop on my laptop. I assembled them together using this free software, iMovie, which came with my iMac. And that was pretty much it, very basic.
My equipment was very basic too. This was my first soundtrack. And I didn't have, I'm a professional musician, but I did not have professional soundtrack equipment. So I defaulted to what I know best, which is the Finale music engraving program.
for me, the most challenging part of the film was coming up with a title that we both liked. You may have noticed on your score that the working title was Dancing Dots. That was only the working title.
Right.
It was cute and funny, but we were not going to, finalize that as the title.
Every time I looked at a new sequence, I had to make a decision of what music would accommodate the sequence. So I had to make a bunch of choices. I could, of course, line up the music exactly with the animation, or if there was a lot of stuff going on, I could compose music that would it would bring out the rhythms of the animation, but or evoke the animation without, as they used to say, without Mickey Mousing it, without being too literal about it. And there are even a couple of sequences which I deliberately left out of sync because Rob's patterns would start in a certain place and sort of develop a rhythm of their own, and then I would let the music pick up on that rhythm, or the dots and the music were going together, were rhythmically aligned, but I would cut off the music before the end of the phrase so that the dots could continue on and continue the rhythm without the music.
When it came to the suggestions you gave to me about my own animation, one of the most challenging was persuading me to pause the animation. You would say, well, look, keep this screen black for about 10 or 15 seconds, to use as an example. And that was so difficult for me to do at first, because many visual artists who work with animation have a deep fear of dead space.
It was at like minute 7 or 8. It was right after the sequence where you fill the entire screen of multiples of 7 dots in their own little cubicles, and there are just dozens and dozens of them, and it's the loudest music of the entire piece. And my feeling was that something had to happen after that. There had to be, the way we had set this up, there had to be a conflict of some sort, even if it stayed playful.
It's advice to someone who wants to start animating themselves. Make sure you really, really want to do this, because animation can be very, very tedious if you don't have a passion for it. And it takes a lot of patience and time. And be sure that you really love the art of animation to begin with. Make sure you love animation in all of its forms, not just the Disney and the Looney Tunes, but also commercial animation, educational animation, modern animation, computer animation, avant-garde animation, experimental animation. Animate a bouncing ball. Okay? Animating a bouncing ball will teach you a lot about motion and gravity and physics. If you succeed in animating a bouncing ball, then I think you're off to a good start.
I'd like to thank the producers of the Animation Celebration Fest. Thank you so much for selecting our piece.
Thank you very much.